Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to be doing a very chill tier list ranking all 45 civilizations from the best to the worst. And we're going to be doing this in the format of 1v1 Red Bull Wololo Empire Wars. Now Empire Wars is a game mode, for those who don't know, that starts in feudal age with a established economy. And Red Bull is coming back this October with a $150,000 tournament, Red Bull Wololo 7. El Reinado in Spain. And they've opened a ranked ladder specific for the tournament, 11 tournament maps on the Empire War setting. Everyone can play on it, and on July 28th, the four highest ranked players on that ladder will get a direct invite to the tournament. So as you can see, Empire Wars will be really big for the next few months, all the way pretty much until October. It's not going to be the only thing that's going to be played. Random map will still be, very prominent. But I figured it's really good time to do a tier list for Empire Wars. Because for those who are watching the tournament and who are watching the streams, people, the pro players grinding or whatnot, understanding that tier lists can help the viewing experience quite a lot. You guys get to know what to look out for, what civs are strong, what strategies will be played, that kind of stuff. And for those looking to grind the rank ladder themselves, whether they aim for top 4 or just to push their limits to as far high up as they can get, this video will be very valuable for those guys that want to grind the ranked ladder themselves. I'll be talking about all the different civs, the metas, that kind of stuff. And as far as credentials for me on Empire Wars, I've played 75 games already within like 3 days on this ranked ladder, and we're currently rank 1, is doing pretty well. Obviously, this will change. It's a very long grind till July 28th, but I have a pretty decent understanding of the meta already. Things could change, but I don't think they'll change that dramatically. So this tier list should last from now to the tournament in October. I assume so. So with all that said, I've been requested some Empire content, and here I am delivering. Starting things off with the Armenians, as you can see, from S tier is OP. Then we got strong, viable, subpar, and bad. Armenians, they're going to actually slot right off the bat at a pretty high rank. I'm going to put them in the A tier for the time being. And the reason for this is because on the 11 maps of Empire Wars, you start with 3 lumber camps to begin. And usually these lumber camps are very poorly placed. For Armenians, you start with 3 mule carts, which you can move to be perfectly efficient. This on its own gives mule cart civs a huge boost. On top of that, Armenians get a stronger double bit axe. And you can even get gold mining upgrade right off the bat if you wanted to, which is also a stronger version of the tech from the Armenians bonus. So Armenians are actually very, very strong. And on top of that, the fact that they're great on water maps, probably the best on water maps, you can see how the civilization is incredibly strong. The reason I'm not putting it in the OP category, though, is because Armenians, like they have the weakness in random map, they honestly just lack units in late game. They don't have very strong cavalry. Their arbalest line is actually lacking thumb ring, for example. They're lacking bombard cannon, so it's a little bit awkward, to say the least, for this civilization. Not that their late game is bad; it's just very awkward and a bit lacking. Still, a strong A tier is not too bad for them. Next up, we've got the Aztecs. Now, what's funny about the Aztecs, right, is that Meso civilizations in general tend to be really strong in random map. In Empire Wars, they're even stronger. This is because you start off the game right away with barracks, then you make a range right away with Meso, and you have 2 production buildings. Barracks can make eagle and spear, and then the archer range can make archer and skirm. And so your 2 production buildings will be, cooking right off the bat. Your opponent against Meso probably doesn't want to make spears, and so his barracks won't be doing a whole lot. Men-at-arm play is not very popular in Empire Wars. And even if they did go men-at-arms, Aztecs can just go archers, or Meso in general can just go archers and shut the whole thing down. And so enemy has just a barracks, which is useless, so he'll have 1 production building, either stable or range. Meaning he's going to be on 1 production building versus your 2 from the start of the game. Aztecs also have faster production buildings, so you can see how the Aztecs overwhelm the opponent rather quickly. On top of that, Aztecs are also really good at, overrunning and kind of like snowballing the army advantage, and like eagle warriors in general and castle age, the king of snowball. So you start overwhelming your opponent slowly in feudal age, get a small advantage, go to castle age, and then just snowball with all in eagle. Really simple game plan, really strong for the Aztecs. I'll put them in the A tier for now, probably above Armenians. I don't think they're the best civ in any one map, but I think that they're a really good civ in many maps. All Meso civs, spoiler alert, will be in the A tier. I'm sure of it. Next up, we've got the Bengalis. Also, do note that I am spending a lot of time on every civ. You guys requested that on YouTube. You said take your time with the thoughts. So here I am taking my time and giving some extra intel so you guys can watch this while working or whatever on a side monitor. Next up, we've got the Bengalis. The civilization is it's not bad. It's just awkward. Everything about the civ is awkward. And one big miss in Empire Wars is you don't have knights. Now in random map, it's not a big deal. Light cav plus monk is usually very good to like relic control and chill. And then you can boom. But on Empire Wars, that's not really how the game works. Like the game is super fast paced. You have a lot of resources. Sometimes you just need the knight, or you're not gonna do well. And like you could say the Wrath is like a knight replacement, and to some extent it is. Wrath is actually very good stat wise. It's a really good unit. But I just cannot wrap myself around using the Wrath properly. The unit is incredibly clunky. And it has a lot of things about it that just don't work properly. Like, for example, if you double-click a Ratha, you have like 10 Ratha, 4 are ranged and 6 are melee. You double-click the range unit Ratha, it only selects the range unit Ratha. And so to control the units, you can't even just double-click them. You have to like look which one is range, which one is sword. It's not very clear. The sword one has a sword, the range one has like a bow, but it's not that clear in the middle of like a fight or anything like that. So I find myself when playing Rathas, I'm spending most of my time thinking of like how the Rathas are positioned and not about like the game, not about spending my resources, transitions, where can I hit my opponent. I'm just trying to focus all my energy, my brain power on who's holding a sword and who's holding a bow, which is just whack. So Bengalis are C tier, not because they're bad, but just because they're hella awkward to play. And I don't think their style fits too well with the Empire Wars. That being said, they're not a bad civ, and they have some decent, maps that they can be good on. Next up, we got the Berbers. Berbers are actually a big winner for Empire Wars. I'll be talking about this a lot through the video, I'm sure. But the whole idea with Empire Wars is because you start in Feudal Age, some civs gain. The civs that have bad Dark Ages, they benefit from that. And some civs that have good Dark Ages actually are hurt by Empire Wars. Berbers have a terrible Dark Age. They have no bonus from Dark Age to Feudal Age. Only get their bonuses in Castle. Before that, they only have faster moving vills, which is like pretty whatever. And so starting in the Feudal Age pretty much solves half the problem for Berbers. And I think that alone gives me a reason to put them in the upper B tier. Potentially in the bottom of A tier. Just not there yet. Some maps for Berbers would be like absolutely amazing. And Berbers just got shipwright. So even on hybrid maps, they might be a little bit more appealing now. Not a huge buff, but definitely something worth considering. So I might change them to top of A, but for now, bottom of A. For now, top of B, I'm like certain they belong there. They will be a force to be reckoned with. And if you like cavalry play, highly recommend the Berbers. Like on Empire Wars, you can just all in Castle and be successful. It's like by far the easiest way to play. Full wall and feudal and just relax. Market sell stone, 3 stable knight castle, or 3 range crossbow ballistics in castle. Easiest playstyle, not necessarily the best, but it's a very consistent and very powerful way to play. It's really hard to stop it. It's a lot easier to do that style, the all-in, than it is to stop it. And which is why civilizations like Berbers, really good, especially in the hands of lower level players. Like if you're a lower level player trying to get a high rank, picking up civs like Berbers and just all-inning every game is a really good way, A, to get better with military and pushing, and B, to climb elo fast. Yeah, I'm giving away my secrets here. Next up, we've got Bohemians. This civilization suffers a bit like Bengalis in the sense that they're awkward, but they're less awkward. They can go for really nice plays in Castle Age with like chemistry, hand cannoneer. Again, all-ins like that can be really strong. Also, one thing I should mention is that in Redbull Wololo Empire Wars, there is a year, a countdown timer, I think to like an hour and 15 minutes in game time, 900 years. When that runs out, whoever has higher score wins. This has a really big impact on civilizations that have a weak trash game. Because now what you can do is you can go double gold comp, push, and then when hyper late game comes, you just have to survive 15 minutes, get higher score, you win. And so Bohemians are kind of like the goat of spending gold and just going all in with their gold. They mine it really fast. They have really strong gold options. So I think that kind of style with Bohemians can work really well. I'm going to put them in the bottom of B tier for now. They don't stand out as like a civ to really go for, but if you do get them, it's not like the worst thing in the world. And on some maps, I can see them being pretty decent. Next up, we've got the Britons here. Britons are not a great Empire War civs, Empire War civ, and the reason for that is that usually Britons likes to have a Dark Age where they're able to, take the sheep faster and just kind of relax and set things up, maybe wall up a little bit. And Empire Wars, they don't really get that luxury. And so I feel like Britons, yeah, you still have some sheep in Empire War, but you have less sheep and you eat through it too fast. And the downside with that is that in Empire Wars, once you eat through your sheep, you have like 8 vills or 10 vills just sitting there idle. And with Britons, it happens too quickly. You don't have time to send those all to farms. You just don't have the wood for it. And so it's hard to find a solution for those 8 vills that go idle really fast with Britons. So it's a hard or slash awkward civ in the early game. And Empire Wars doesn't really fit its style too well. Britons is more a defensive and slow civ that wants to add TCs. Empire Wars is a fast-paced, army, snowbally kind of map, kind of game mode. So Britons can be played on the right map with the right style if you like them. If not, I think they are bottom of C tier or middle of C tier. Next up, we got the Bulgarians, a fan favorite here. You guys know why. Bulgarians are actually pretty good. I have good news here. They are probably bottom of A tier. Bulgarians do only one thing good, but they do it really good. They are insane at feudal pressure. So Bulgarians, once again, is a big winner from Empire Wars. They have no Dark Age economy bonus, so skipping Dark Age is fantastic. They are probably the only civ that could consistently go for meta arms on Empire Wars as well, because you get the upgrade for free, so you can mix 1 or 2 to begin and put pressure. Really good way to play. But even if you don't want to play meta arms, you can easily play like archers plus scouts with the civ, since your blacksmith, which you start with 1 in Empire Wars, works faster and is cheaper. So you can pick up fletching for 50 food, 50 gold, and forging for 75 food within like 1 minute. So within 1 minute, you can have scouts and archers, very aggressive style, both have an upgrade on them. That is insanely hard to deal with. Not only that, but the Bulgarians will get some advantage in feudal, go a lot of army and castle, and follow it up with forward Krepos push. And so Krepos, with a lot of army in the field, is an insane tool to use to win the game early. And I think Bulgarians are really, really favored for Empire Wars. If you like aggression, you're going to like Bulgarians, and it's actually a very solid way to play. It's not an amazing civ as far as like being overpowered. You still have to like push and find damage, but you have a good time doing that. Next up, we got the Burgundians. This civilization is kind of interesting, to be honest, because the playstyle of Burgundians doesn't necessarily fit Empire Wars too well. Remember, they in random map like to get double bit axe and Dark Age. Here we skip Dark Age, and so you don't really get the double bit axe value. Burgundians is one of the biggest losers of Empire Wars in terms of like how the game is played. However, their style of like all-in Cavalier and going for relics and castle is a really good Empire Wars style. Going hard for the map, taking the relics and getting the food and gold from the relic is really good. As far as the civ being good for Empire Wars, definitely not a good one. But it still has a very clear win condition, which is like spam Cavalier or anything in Castle Age, like a lot of units, pick up the relics and continue pushing from that point on. And then double gold comps for it are pretty insane, like Paladin, Hand Cannoneer, or like Custodier, like Monk is very usable as well. So it has like good units and stuff, but its economy and its start is just nothing too special. Overall, I would probably put it in bottom of C tier. Might even go a bit lower, but I think it's still somewhat playable. Next up, we have Burmese, which I think is actually a very solid civilization. I know you guys are probably used to Burmese propaganda on the channel by now, but I insist that Burmese are better in Empire War than on random map. Burmese have no Dark Age eco bonus, but in Feudal Age, they get +1 attack on infantry from the get-go, and they get double bit axe for free on the get-go. And not having to research double bit axe is actually a really nice bonus. I would put Burmese in the middle of B tier, and I am pretty certain it's a very good civ. Obviously, some downsides of Burmese, like it has some awkward, matchups against archer civs and stuff. But I think with how good your start will be and how nice your economy is, you can always find some kind of like all-in castle, monk, siege, knights, that kind of stuff, to put pressure on your opponent and not have to worry about his like 30 crossbows in castle. You can just like put pressure before he gets there. I like Burmese a lot. I think they're really solid. Next up, we have Byzantine. I think this civilization is absolutely insane. I am actually going to put them in the top of A tier-ish. Not sure if I put them above Meso. But the reason Byzantine are so cracked is the skirm spear strategy. It's very similar concept to the Meso, where you use your barracks as your second production building. So instead of going stable plus range and going like archer scout as like double composition, you instead go for range and barracks. So you go spears and you go skirms, both of which you have a 25% discount, and you can even get like fletching and armor on spears, for example, right off the bat. It's a really cool rush, and there's a few civilizations that could do this very effectively. But in my opinion, Byzantine is by far the best one, and the reason is the double stable camel switch in castle will shut down any all-in knight play. So you go spear, skirm, and castle. You put in feudal, you put so much pressure. In castle age, your opponent probably wants to go like knights to clear you up. If he gets the castle first, he will clear your spears before you get pikemen. We don't even want pikemen usually against knights in castle, because if they just go like knights all in with monks and siege, pikemen has a pretty hard time holding that sometimes. But what you want to do is switch to camel. If you get the camel plus monks as Byzantine, you are not dying to knights. Your camels are so cheap. Yes, you don't have bloodlines, but you can heal them up really easily with the monks. And the camels are so cheap, you're going to get to obscene amounts of camels and just control the game in Castle Age completely fine. This opening is really strong for Byzantine. Again, Byzantine is one of the biggest winners of Empire War. You skip Dark Age, where you have no eco bonus, and you get right into Feudal Age, where you're making discounted units right off the bat. It's incredible how strong Byzantine can be. And add on top of that, on any hybrid map or water map, they're going to be making fire ships that are actually much stronger. So Byzantines will be strong on water maps or hybrid maps, and also on pure land maps. So they have basically no weakness. The reason why they're not OP is because there are some civilizations that are simply a little bit better. It's the only way to put it. Next up, we've got the Celts. Now, the Celts are actually amazing in Empire Wars from a stylistic perspective. Now, as far as dealing, doing a lot of damage or a lot of army in Castle Age, that is one of your main goals in Empire Wars, and Celts are really good at that. They swarm a lot of army onto the field, with their wood economy being so crazy because you start with a lot of those on wood. The one downside of Celts is that Celts usually have a nice Dark Age with like the wood bonus coming in right away before your opponent. So you have like an extra 100 wood from the Dark Age. In Empire Wars, you kind of miss out on that. But, like I said, stylistically, Celts are pretty good for what you want to go for. And for that reason, we're going to put them in the top of C tier. Still not a great civilization. You're missing bloodlines, which can hurt you in a lot of cases. But playing some sort of like 3-range skirms and archers can be insane. And I just think that the Celts, get work done in Empire Wars. Huang has been playing a lot of Celts, and he's trying to like FC siege push with them. But I have to say that strat is not very good on Empire War. Going FC is really hard. The guy would just rush you with army, mark it up himself like 1 minute later, and you don't have enough time, I think, to make an FC siege push work. It's not a terrible strategy, but it's just a little bit inconsistent. Moving on to the Chinese, this civilization feels okay. It's like the definition of an okay civ. You start with extra 3 vills, but you obviously need to take food before making another one. And you also don't have the wood for a production building right away. So the Chinese do get off to a pretty slow start, but you will be up like 2.5 villagers from the start of the game. So it depends if you like that kind of style. I could see some people really liking it, to be fair. Being up 2.5 fills is no small task, and especially if you play a defensive opening like on the Arabia version, like Kars is an Arabia kind of map. If you play a defensive opening, just wall up, range defense, and just chill, being up to 2 vills plus the other bonuses that Chinese have, it's actually quite good. So I would probably throw the Chinese in B tier, and unfortunately, they're gonna have to be slightly ahead of Burmese just because. In the case that Chinese will be good, they're going to be very good. It's just that you can't win the game with Chinese, but you have to focus on just not losing for the first 5 minutes, and then you become strong. If you like that playstyle, Chinese are good, but it's nothing too special. Next up, we've got the Cumans. Cumans are also pretty good. The 2TC is not exactly viable on many of these maps. I think there's like 1 or 2 maps where you could pull it off. But I do like the cheaper ranges and stables. That helps a lot on some of the aggressive maps. So I would actually say Cumans are definitely quite a strong one. Again, hard to say exactly where I'd put them, but I think somewhere in the middle of B feels nice for the humans. You have a nice play with the 2TCs, and you have a nice play with early aggression. After that, you don't have a whole lot. So it's like an early game powerhouse, but not quite to the point of Bulgarians. Honestly, they might be even a little bit weaker than Burmese, if you ask me, because Burmese also probably have just like a similar start than Cumans, and I think they scale a bit better into Castle Age. Whereas Cumans, they kind of have to make use of the 2TC or get some value early from their cheaper buildings. Their late game is also not too impressive, to be honest. Nothing really to brag about besides Paladin. Paladin is usually quite easily dealt with from a lot of civs. Camels, halbs, monks, that kind of stuff. Next up, we've got Dravidians, which are actually a really good civ in Empire Wars. You get the 200 wood right off the bat. So you can slap down 2 ranges, for example. You can also, on water maps, slap down a dock plus a range right away. And so I actually think Dravidians are pretty strong. Nothing too impressive, though, because they still have a lot of weaknesses on like land maps. You guys know what the Dravidian weaknesses are. I've been over them a lot at this point. No knights is obviously a huge drawback. Their late game is okay. It's not too bad. But I think Dravidians will also suffer from like your opponent just going double gold comp. Because at the end of the day, it is a skirmisher civ. And I talked earlier about how like the years, because there's a time limit, a lot of people will go double gold comp. It's going to be really, really strong. I might make a video entirely on that topic, by the way. And skirm civs like Dravidians do terribly against double gold comp. Like skirms have no place in double gold comp usually. And so usually to stop double gold comp, you need like Halb Arbalest, or you need some like siege plus defense. And like Halbs are really good to stop like the Cavalier or the Paladin from overrunning you. But skirms don't really do a really good job of sniping the backline too much. So yeah, that's kind of like the bad part for Dravidians. Overall, I'd probably, considering there's water maps in there, I'd probably stick them somewhere in the mid tier. Maybe right behind Burmese, although actually probably ahead of Burmese, just because Dravidians probably do slightly better on some on some water maps. But then again, no, I think Burmese is still overall slightly better. Like the economy is just really, really nice and smooth for Burmese, and I think they have bloodlines, which is a pretty big deal. A lot of times in Empire Wars, by the way, you need to go Bloodline Scouts and Feudal. You just need to do that to survive. So I do value that quite highly. Next up, we've got Ethiopians, and here we go, one of the best civilizations for Empire Wars in a very specific playstyle. So this one I need to talk for a couple seconds here. Basically, if you guys watch the last few Empire War tournaments, basically what people would do is they take Ethiopians, another civ later you'll see. And because they get extra 100 food, 100 gold from the start, they would just wall up, do 1 range archers, maybe 1 stable, put a little bit of fast pressure, market, sell stone, and go up right away. Because they start with so many resources that you're just like a hair away from Castlage. You get it with the market, and then you just go all in, 2 ranges, 1 stable, or 3 ranges, 1 stable ballistics in castle, and you just like win the game on the spot. That is the easiest strategy to use to get a really good result with the strong archer civs. So the reason why this works with Ethiopians and not with Britons is because Britons just doesn't have the extra 200 resources from the start. They're a bit slower paced, whereas Ethiopians get an extra 200 and then another 200 upon reaching castle. So that's like insane. Ethiopians will be probably somewhere in the A tier. I'm kind of not sure exactly where I want to put them. They could easily be top of A tier, but they're a bit predictable in their style. So that's kind of like the only reason I don't really like them. They're predictable but powerful. I would honestly put them below Aztecs, but above Byzantine. I think you get an easier time getting good results with Ethiopians over the Byzantine. Byzantine, you have to be a little bit more strategic with them. Ethiopian is like raw power. And also, if you're like an archer lover and you want to climb the ladder fast, Ethiopian's really good. You just like literally range, full wall early game, all in and castle. You have such a good time with it. Next up, we've got the Franks. Franks are actually not a great civilization for Empire Wars, but they're not a bad one either. They're just like a pretty like mediocre one, but like upper mediocre. Yeah, it's nothing too special, honestly. You get Horse Scholar right off the bat. Most people skip that anyway, but it's not bad. You also get the berry bonus, which is pretty nice. and you get the scout having extra HP from the start of the game. So yeah, actually, it's pretty decent. Now, I kind of talked myself into that. Normally, like Franks have a nice dark edge with the berry bonus, like fast scouts and stuff. But honestly, from the feudal age, is completely fine as well. Okay. I talked myself into it. Franks are good. Probably top of B tier makes some sense, but actually maybe bottom of A because Bulgarians are also like very similar to Franks. But then again, Bulgarians do go with a nice Krepos Russian castle, whereas Franks, their castles are now not as cheap in Castle Age. But I guess it's the same playstyle. Franks more towards the cavalry. Bulgarians, I guess, could play more infantry-based early game if they want to. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with these civs. Fast, aggressive civs that have some weaknesses later on, but are pretty good to get the job done. Next up, we've got the Georgians. This actually might be the first S tier civilization. It's really hard to tell because they're just coming off of a nerf. Their cavalry healing is not as much in the early game anymore, but I still think it's enough cavalry healing to be quite strong. Thing is, Georgians are not as good in Empire War as they are in Random Map. Now, they're different, right? They are a mule cart civ. Mule cart civs are amazing in Empire Wars, so keep that in mind. But usually their start in Random Map is really good, whereas in Empire War, you actually don't need the extra mule cart, which is a bit awkward. You could stick it on the gold, but think of how it works. You have 3 mule carts on wood, and you have 1 mule cart on the gold. You have an extra one as well. You could stick it on stone, or a second one on gold is like the 2 main areas where it could go. But it's really not that crazy. So as much as it looks like Georgians are an S tier civilization, and I've been kind of gassing them up, I actually don't think they're that impressive in Empire Wars. But I'm still going to stick them in top of A tier right here. I think that works really well for them. They are a very strong civilization, but they have not as free of a time as compared to Random Map. Random Map, I think they're broken. In Empire Wars, I think they're strong. Next up, we have the first civilization that could have a nice be a nice contender for the bad category. The Goths, unfortunately, do nothing good on Empire Wars. Like on Empire Wars, you don't have the Dark Age laming, you don't have the free loom advantage, you don't have anything that comes from that, kind of early game cheese that Goths are usually known for. I think I'm going to have to stick them in the bad category. I just don't see how you can make Goths work. Infantry is not good at all in Empire Wars. You even have a harder time getting to Husk Scroll. You have a harder time getting to Longswords. And I've tried to mess around with them a little bit, but it's really difficult. You're basically playing how it feels like a generic civ. Like no bonus works. Like you start with Loom, so you don't get a bonus there. There's not any hunt. Like you maybe have some deer, so you don't really get benefit from that hunting bonus. Cheaper infantry is okay, maybe for spear rush, maybe spear scrim is okay, but your follow-up in castle is nothing spectacular as well. Yeah, I think Goths are honestly just not a good civ for Empire Wars. Simple as that. They're the one civ I feel like you just don't have anything going for you. Also, keep in mind, because there's the years feature, you don't even have... Sorry, there's a car in the background. I don't know if you guys can hear it. Because of the years feature in Empire Wars, you don't even have a long late game. Like you don't have a lot of time in late game to really cook with the Goths. So I don't know. Not a big fan. Gurjaras. Personally, not a huge fan of the civ either. I've played it a few times and it never felt very strong. I think you could be strong with the Gurjaras. If your opponent is going for like brainless knights, then you get, you pull out the camels and it's great. Otherwise, the sheep in the mill don't have time to pay off. Simple as that. Like, it's just not worth doing it. I don't like the civ at all. I think I'm going to actually stick it in like bottom of C tier. Probably ahead of Burgundians because I think Gurjaras have like better units in some cases. But overall, it's really just not an impressive civ at all here. Hindustani, not a bad civ. You don't get the Dark Age, where you get some savings on villagers, like in the normal, random map game. But I think Hindustani are still, forced to be reckoned with, and they're probably one of the best camel civs out there that you can go for. So I would put Hindustani probably around somewhere in B tier makes sense. But they don't seem anything spectacular for the game mode. So probably right here above Bohemians, because I think they have a better late game than Bohemians in a lot of cases. Next up, we've got the Huns. This is actually one of the better civilizations now in Empire Wars. They just got a huge buff. They no longer start with minus 100 wood, which is the biggest bottleneck of the Civ before, was just not getting the wood from the start. Right now, I think the civilization is incredibly strong. I think it's strong to the point where it actually could be in the OP category. And I think I'm going to be bold and stick it in there. It's going to be bottom of S tier. I played this Civ a couple times. It feels ridiculously smooth. You basically get stable or range right away, and then you don't need to make a single house. So you can get double bidax, and then your wood will skyrocket because you're not spending on any houses. And you just go for more and more army. You can go like stable, range, then a minute later, another range. You're all of a sudden 2 ranges plus 1 stable. Super aggressive gameplay. Get the castage, you can go either Knights or CA, both of which are great. You can get a lot of army on the field, which fits the playstyle of Empire Wars very much. And the civilization just feels like it has no weakness. I know it's crazy, and I'm usually a Huns hater, but on Empire Wars, I think they have an insanely smooth start, probably the best start in the game. Or at least the best feudal age, and maybe not exactly the start, but the best feudal age of the game, and it leads into one of the best castle ages in the game. Also, because there's a timer, you can go double gold comps. You can go Cavalier plus heavy CA in Castle and Imperial Age. So you don't have to even worry. You can just spam Knights, spam CA, and play with gold units, which is what Huns love to do. Use the mobility, use the gold units, and just try to pressure and win more map or win the game. Great civilization. It's a bit bold to put an S tier, but it's at least first impression for me. I have a gut feeling this civilization will be highly contested. Next up, we've got the Incas. I'm going to keep it very simple for the Meso civs. I've already said everything I had to say about them for the Aztecs. Sorry, there's a hair in my mouth. But we're going to stick them basically right near Aztecs. Incas strike me as slightly worse than Aztecs on Empire Wars. The faster production of Aztecs is really good. The extra 50 gold at the start is also really valuable. Incas have like slightly better options late game, and in the Meso mirror match, Incas might be better because of slingers, but overall, you really can't go wrong with either or. I would say Aztecs are slightly better, but we're splitting hairs on this one. And it really comes down to personal preference. All Mesos, spoiler alert, all Mesos will be in this category. Maybe mine's in the OP, but they're all around this very strong power level. Next up, we've got Italians. They don't seem very good to me in Empire Wars. They seem like a pretty big loser of Empire Wars because usually you get off to a nice start. You save 75 food on the way up to a feudal age. In Empire Wars, you start in feudal age and don't get that luxury. You still get a cheaper castle, which is okay, but other than that, they're not very solid. Also, on water maps, you normally make fishing ships with Italians. On this map, on this game mode, you start with 4 fishing ships on water maps or on the water map, and so Italians don't even get the wood savings from those fishing ships. So even as a water civ, it's not great in Empire Wars. Overall, it's hard to say Italians is a bad civ. I think it's still okay. But I would say it's probably a lower tier pick. I would put it ahead of Gajara's as a generic civ that's okay, but you're never going to want to pick it. Like, even on water maps, there's just way better water civs on this game mode. So it's kind of just an okay civilization if you want to play it. If not, then you're not missing out. Next up, we've got the Japanese. This civilization is also not very good. You start with 3 lumber camps and a mining camp and a mill. Those are normally buildings that save you 50 wood each. Here, you don't save any wood on them. And you can't even really play with infantry, because remember, infantry as a general rule are really bad. You don't have time to make use of them on Empire Wars, since your opponent would just have range right off the bat if they want to, so your men-at-arm rush will do nothing every single time. And so Japanese, without like their early game wood savings and without their infantry in the early game, are just left with nothing else. They are a really bad civ on Empire Wars. Shout out Spirit of the Law. Japanese are nice, man, but not here, bro. Not here. Here they suck. I'm gonna put them honestly in the bad category. Not like Italians, where like at least on water maps you have some nice advantages. With Japanese or like a decent late game, you have Hussar, you have something to look forward to. Japanese just have nothing to look forward to. I can't even think of a single scenario where Japanese will be like really strong. I guess like fishing ships are nice and tanky, but other than that, man, it's a very lackluster civ with a pretty weak late game. So you're just scaling to nothing with this civ, unfortunately. Next up, we've got Khmer. This civilization feels really good. It's hard to put into words why it's good. It just feels really smooth to play. Normally, the weakness of Khmer is not having a barracks. On Empire Wars, you always have a barracks. So you're playing with a barracks. You're playing basically Khmer and Feudal Age with a barracks. That's the best way to put it. So you have really good farms. You have the houses that you can jump in with your villagers, and you're playing the game very smooth. They're not that insane though, but they're just like really strong, I guess. So it's not like I would say they're OP, but they're definitely strong. I think I'd stick them like right behind Armenians. That seems like a pretty good place for them. Maybe above Armenians actually seems pretty good. Yeah, I think the farms being strong and the houses are the two best bonuses for Khmer. No, we're gonna stick them behind Armenians. The mule carts are a bit too good. I insist the mule carts are really, really solid. Next up, we've got Koreans. Similar explanation to Byzantine. The Skirm Spear Rush is really good. People are calling it the Sperm Rush, but I don't think that's going to catch on, to be honest. Let me know your thoughts about that in the comments. For me, I am staying away from that term. We call it the Spear Skirm still, and with Koreans, it's really good because you get cheaper units on both, and you also get free armor on the Skirms, which is quite nice, to be fair, quite nice. I think it's a good civ. The thing is, when you Skirm Spear, it's not like Byzantine where you can jump into like 2-stable camel. Here, their knights are weak, no bloodlines, and they don't have camel. So you're going to be stuck into your like Skirm Spear for a long time, which is not bad, but it is a bit limiting. Let's be real here. That being said, I do like the guard towers and castle age from Koreans. I think that's a really nice bonus for them. Getting those guard towers for free can be nice. And war wagons can be a really good option if you're able to cast a drop. So for me, Koreans are going to be somewhere in the mid tier. I think I'm going to stick them right near the Byzantine, yeah, maybe above Burmese. They're going to be slightly better in the early game than some civs like Dravidians in terms... Oh, no, not early game, sorry. They're going to be a little bit better in the late game compared to civs like Dravidians, but they also have a strong early game like civs like Dravidians, and they're also pretty good on water. So they just have a bit more options than Dravidians. There are better Dravidians in a lot of ways, and at least you have knights if you need them for a small, a small portion of castlage. Next up, we have Lithuanians. This civilization is clearly very strong on Empire Wars. You start with an extra 100 food. You get fast-moving spearmen and skirmishers, so you can very easily go for the Skirm Spear Rush. And then when you get the castle age, remember, a lot of army is king. Lithuanians loves to play a lot of army, pick up the relics, and then add TCs. Every time a TC goes up, boom, plus 100 food. This playstyle is perfect for Empire Wars. It suits them incredibly well. And think of it this way, like the 100 food at the start in Dark Age of random map helps you click up a little faster to feudal. Here, it helps you get more army on the field right off the bat in Feudal Age. Lithuanians are insane. I will stick them probably right around here with the strong early game civs like Lithuanians, Bulgarians, and Franks. Lithuanians are the best of the bunch though, because I think they get a really nice castle age with the relic idea. It's an easy game plan to execute, and it's really strong if you get 4 relics and spam +4 attack knights. Next up, we got the Magyars. I'm going to probably stick this in the top of B tier. Really strong scout rush, scout spear with them, +1 attack, cheaper scouts is fantastic. This kind of style is nice for Empire Wars. The only caveat is archer civs tend to do really well versus Magyars, especially archer civs that have camel. So you open archers and you play defensively with walls and like as many ranges as you need, 1 or 2. Fletching is in and you just stay safe. If the Magyar player goes skirms, you can easily add a stable and go a couple of scouts, so you just stay safe. Maybe 1 tower. And then come Castle Age, Magyars have no eco bonus, so you should be ahead of them, at least a little bit, if they don't kill Vils. And you just go crossbow camel. And I don't think Magyar has a single response that's viable against crossbow camel. They'd have to play something like siege defense, like Scorpion, Monk, Knight is not bad, but then in that case you go forward siege and you go Maganos, which counters the monks and the scorpions, and they don't have redemption. So you can see how strategically speaking, Magyars have a really big hole in their tech tree against crossbow camel. Also, you see this reasoning in my head right now. this is pro play in Age of Empires. This is why it's so beautiful. Like, when I say on first glance, Magyars have nothing versus crossbow camo, I'm sure the first thought that came to your minds is, what about Scorpions? That counters both units. If Magyars go Scorpions, first of all, they can't go forward Scorpion. They're going to be later to Castle Age most of the time because they're lacking an eco bonus. So unless they get a lot of damage, they won't be fast at a castle. A civilization like, let's say, Saracens with the market, or like Hindustani with the cheaper vills, tends to get to Castle Age slightly faster. So Magyars won't have the map control to go forward siege. And if they can't do forward siege, defensive siege with Scorpion doesn't work because it invites forward siege from the opponent, mangonels to counter the Scorpions. And then the camels and the crossbow will perfectly defend the mangonels against the Magyar Knights. So then the Magyar player has to go mangonels, and then they are on the back foot, and the guy is just massing camels, and things are getting a bit nasty. But that being said, Magyars are still not a bad civ. There's not a lot of crossbow camel civs in the game, and so if Magyars can avoid that, or if Magyars can do a lot of damage in the first 3-4 minutes with the Scout Rush, then Magyars will be in a good position, and so you always have a win condition with Magyars. You just have to go ahead and look for it and outplay your opponent in the early game. Next up, we have Malay, a really strong civilization, maybe even in the S tier category. I have to give it some thought here. You don't have any downside in the early game with Malay. You start in Feudal Age, equal resources as the opponent. You have free armor on your spears, which is really annoying in a lot of cases. And so you get off to a nice start. And then you could always squeeze in a faster castle. And a faster castle is really huge for Empire Wars. Lets you get the crossbow timing. Lets you set up an all-in. They also have their elephants, which are cheaper, which are really nice for the all-in. And they also get, after that, a faster Imperial Age. And remember, Malay late game is nothing too special, but they can play double gold comp, Arbalest Elephant, Arbalest Karambit, Arbalest Cannon, spend all their gold, and then the time limit will be reached very shortly after, and so they don't have to worry about the hyper late game and getting Hussar rated to death. They can just win in the early imp or mid imp and be completely fine. And so I'm not sure exactly where I want to put Malay right now, but they do seem to be in the stronger side of things. It's a little early to tell if they will be OP or not, but I think I'm going to stick them, let's say, top of B tier. Sounds pretty good for them right now. The civilizations up here are just a little bit stronger, I feel, on first glance. So we'll put them here and we'll see how they perform. They're not OP. They could be A tier, though. Next, we have Malians. This civilization is actually not that great in Empire Wars because a lot of your buildings are already there, so you're not getting the wood savings like you would in random map. And, you know, you're left with a pretty generic civ. It's not bad, but it just doesn't excite me too much. It's not a very strong civ. In the late game, per se, it's just pretty generic. If you like the Malians, they're good. If not, you're not missing out. I think I would just stick them, honestly, right behind something like Burmese. Maybe even behind Cumans and maybe even behind Hindustani. I think they're slightly better than Hindustani and maybe even slightly better than Cumans because they have camels with bloodlines and, you know, actually Cumans have them too, but Malians have maybe slightly more all-in potential than the Cumans and Hindustani. Getting all your vills on gold, for example, using the market, it's a really good all-in style for Empire Wars, which I value a lot. So I'd say with that in mind, they're not bad, but they're not going to feel as smooth as in random map. Next up with Mayans, again, we already talked about it. In my opinion, they are, however, the best of the Meso, and I'm going to stick them in the S tier category. They are the best of the Meso civs. They're incredibly strong. What's really OP about Meso and Empire War is your sheep lasting longer. I talked earlier about Britons. They eat through the sheep too fast. Mayans don't eat through the sheep very fast at all. It lasts even longer, meaning you don't need to make farms, meaning you can get to market, sell stone, and get up the castle much faster. And that's after making use of the eagle, spear, and archer strategy, the double production building, even though you only added one building in feudal. That's a really, really big play for the Mayans. So in my opinion, they're like one of the best civilizations for the Empire Wars. And remember, like across all maps, Mayans will be consistently performing really well. Some civs in A tier might be like Armenians might be the best water civ, but like on a lot of other maps, they're nothing too special, or like they're okay but nothing great. Whereas Mayans are consistently across like pretty much every map gonna be like S tier or top tier at least. Next up, we've got the Mongols. This will be an absolute shocker for you guys, but Mongols are actually pretty bad. They are going to be placed in the top of the bad category. I know it's really shocking, but Mongols don't get any bonuses in Empire Wars like they do in random map. Think about it. They don't hunt. There's no boars on Empire Wars, and even the deer you only get like 4 usually, and it's not that special. And you don't get a single bonus after that, like a small hunt bonus till Castle Age. So a few deer getting in a little faster, nothing till Castle. In Castle, all you get plus 20% HP on your Scout Cavalry line and Step Lancer line. That's it. So in obviously in random map they're insane because you get up to Feudal faster. You have the Scout extra line of sight, which is nice. Here in Feudal, you get the extra line of sight, but opponent has a Feudal Scout anyway, so it's not a nice competitive edge over the opponent. So Mongols lose all their charm almost from random map. They're nothing too special. The only reason they're at the top of bad is that at least they have good units. Like Step Lancer with extra HP is pretty good. It's better than Japanese, better than Goths. Manga, that's pretty good. The late game is really good, but it's just not an Empire War Civ. If you play with Mongols, you know what I'm talking about. It's like the rare occasion where Mongols are actually a bad Civ. But yeah, unfortunately, they are a pretty bad Civ. Next up, we've got Persians. This is a very strong contender for OP category. On hybrid maps especially, this civilization will be nuts. You get off to an insane start, plus 50 food, plus 50 wood. And you also, which was really nice, you also get the dock right off the bat with extra HP, and that works faster, so you can win water. Your TCU works faster from the get-go, so you're going to be pulling ahead in vills. It's a really strong civilization. However, it just feels like it's not 100% like overpowered. Like with Persians, you're gonna need to. You can't like market them up as easy as some of the OP civs like Ethiopians and Mayans and Huns. Like you get up to a nice start, but it feels closer to what these civilizations are doing and not to what like those civilizations are doing. These civilizations, like why Mez is strong, is that they put pressure and then they market up. That's so crucial. Cellstone up. It's amazing. Whereas Persians, they burn through your food fast because your TC is working faster. You're making high-cost food units. None of your resources are lasting longer. And so I just feel like Persians don't feel like they're not going to win you the game instantly. But they have an incredible early game, incredible start. I'm going to stick them probably above Armenians and maybe even above Byzantine just because I feel like they're maybe a little bit more well-rounded than these since they have camel and they have a better start on a hybrid map. So these two are going to be your hybrid kings, basically, Persians and Byzantine and Huns. So those are your 3 hybrid kings, I think. Next up, we've got Poles, and this is another really, really weak Empire War Civ. Farming is incredibly hard. Even with auto farm in the game now, farming with Poles on Empire Wars, it's like you have no time to do that. You're going to get pressured from the start of the game. You don't have a second to breathe and just think about it. The one thing is, like, there's a map with a lot of stone. So maybe on that map, Poles mining stone can be nice. And maybe on some maps where you have time to add farms, they can also be pretty nice. Those are the 2 things I'm going to consider for Poles. And even with those 2 things in mind, I think they're going to be somewhere in the subpar category. Probably right here. You pick them if you like them. They have a bit more, power than Italians in the right situation, but nothing too special. Also, I just realized there's one map with a ton of berries on it, and so I'm going to bump Franks up above Lithuanians and Bulgarians because of that map. Franks might be actually the best civ on that map. So we'll even put them above Khmer. These 4 civs are like the early game strong powerhouse, good start civilizations. And I think Franks might be the best civ on the berry map, and so, or one of the best civ. The next up is Portuguese, which was what reminded me. Portuguese will also be in a very similar strength because of that map. Franks and Portuguese will be probably top 2 there unless something crazy happens or like some counter picks come up. But yeah, I think Portuguese are incredibly strong as well. On Empire Wars, you get the gold savings right away. You're already on berries, so you get extra wood from the get-go. So Portuguese actually skips like the worst age, which is Dark Age. They want to be in Feudal Age, making archers from the start, getting the wood from the berries, up to castle fast, into all in gold units. And remember, back to the timer, we're playing double gold comp in a lot of these games. Portuguese are the king of double gold comp from Castle Age to Imperial Age. They are insane. I'm going to stick them in the top of A tier, especially keeping in mind that they have a map with a ton of berries on it. Next up, we've got the Romans. Very similar to these early game civilizations. They have a nice economy, good units, extra armor on spears, for example, comes to mind. But they feel like they're not as strong as some of these out the gate, which is why we're going to stick them in the B tier. Viable, strong in the right hands, but they remind me a bit of Magyars. You need to do damage with Romans, but you don't start with free resources. So you're not going to like do a bit of damage, then like market them up. You're going to instead do a lot of damage, which is going to lead to like a bigger feudal age, which is a separate play style. You might have to go forward towers or something with Romans, or just like, develop your economy, get the castle a bit later, and then like 3 stable knight or 2 ranged skirm plus 2 stable knight, for example, could be decent against archer civs. But you're not going to be like the first to castle in a lot of cases. Your economy is really nice though. Like Roman's economy is really good. And the 5% faster kicks in right off the bat with 28 vils, which is nice. But again, Dark Age is a really good age for Romans, and they just lost it. So it's a bit weaker than random map in a lot of cases. That being said, the Roman playstyle of a lot of army, and especially in Castle Age, you don't want to really rush early imp with Romans. They're not that strong in early imp. And so a lot of army in castle, forward castle, that kind of Empire War style, snowbally army style, fits Romans perfectly. Next up, we've got the Saracens, which I think are another civilization that thrives with Expo Camo and the market. These 2 tools are really important. And so Saracens, with those in mind, are actually a power civilization in this game mode. They are losing their weakest age, which is the Dark Age. We cut that out. You start right away in Feudal Age. Amazing. They are on par with Ethiopians. And I think they actually might be slightly better or worse than Ethiopians, depending on the civ matchup. Interchangeable against archer civilizations. I think I'd prefer probably having the Ethiopians. Against the cavalry civilizations, I think I'd rather have the Saracens. Simple as that. But they both execute the exact same thing. It must be noted as well, these 2 civilizations have one weakness, which is actually Britons. In an Expo war, if both players are just like ranged into up, Britons can do well because they will have a slightly slower castle time. These 2 civs will get the castle faster with market and free resources. But Britons will have extra range crossbow, and if you get ballistics with extra range, you can actually win the crossbow fight quite easily. So Britons will be used as a counterpick to these strong explosives. Keep that in mind. Keep it in mind. It's a weak civ, but it's a counterpick civ. Next up, we've got the Sicilians, and this is once again going to be a weaker civ. You don't have time to pick up a horse collar to get your bonuses in. No, you don't have very good units. The dungeons are a little bit better, maybe. Since you start in Feudal Age, so it's like you could just drop a dungeon, but I don't really see like the appeal of the civilization at all. And I think with the Sicilians, you lack a win condition. Like I can't even pinpoint. Oh, watch out! The guy's Sicilian. He's got this. Like, oh, the guy's Sicilian. Cool. I guess it's a free game. Like there's 0 threats. So like maybe the dungeon rush is like somehow decent. But taking less bonus damage is okay. This civ, like I'm just kind of rambling. It's basically top of bad tier. It's gonna be slightly better than Mongols because at least the bonuses that it has are working a little bit. It's just hard to squeeze in horse collar, but if you can squeeze it in and play defensive, then you do get some nice wood savings in the mid game, and you could go for dungeon plays if you want to, but it's a very like for fun civ. If you like it, go for it, have fun. Doubt might pull it off once and lose in the main event. Quote me if that happens, by the way. I called it first. But other than that, I don't think it's going to see a whole lot of play. So we'll see what Doubt and Tado cook up. They'll be very creative and find a way to lose with the civ, I'm sure. But other than that, it's not going to do too much. Next up, we've got the Slavs. A civilization that is like Romans. It's very similar to Romans. It has a nice economy over the course of feudal. It leads into a really all-in castle, a really nice all-in castle, but it's not really that good quick out the gate. So like it dies out to a lot of these civs that are just like quick out the gate, stronger than Slavs. But if Slavs can hold on over the course of feudal age, it does pretty well. I'm going to put them kind of probably right here below Romans, because I think Romans is the better version of Slavs. 5% on everything is better than 15% on farms. Okay, simple math. And at least, especially how your early game is set up, like you have 4 on gold, like 12 on wood, 2 on farms only. It's like Slavs get no benefit, the Romans are flying. So I think even with that in mind, Slavs probably come even like less than Magyars, because Magyars probably have a slightly more aggressive early game. more chances to find a win, whereas Slavs are kind of just cruising it to nothing in particular. Still a good civ though, because like the farming does get crazy, and you start with a barracks, which means that you get like an extra house. Then you make a range or a stable, which gets you another extra house. So you don't need to make a house for the first 1 minute, which is a nice small boost to the early game, but nothing too crazy. Next, we have Spanish. I don't see Spanish doing a whole lot, but it's also just not a bad civilization. Like, it does okay. You are skipping Dark Age, which is the worst age for Spanish, by the way, which is not too bad. Hey, not too bad. And getting Bidax right away with plus 20 gold in the bank coming in from that is not a bad situation. Also, you can get fletching right away without gold costs. So you can actually do a nice archer rush with Spanish, which sounds really weird since you don't have crossbow. But you can do a nice archer opening with them. And you have nice conks. On some maps, it could be okay still. But I think I'm just grasping at straws. Spanish remind me like of these civs here. Like these 5 civs were like... or like Italians is just generically like whatever. But Britons and Poles can be really good if what they do is useful. Gujars and Burgundians have at least some playstyle that could work, but are just a bit lackluster. Spanish remind me a bit more like the Poles-Britons scenario, like this trio, where if you need what these civs have to offer, it can be good. If you need like the stone mining of Poles or the farms of Poles, it can be good. If you need the extra range of Britons and the economy, it can be good. And if you need the Conquistador and a good late game, Spanish can be good. Other than that, you probably don't want to play with those civs. Next up, we've got Tatars. This is the other civ, like Ethiopians, like Saracens. It's basically the 3 civs that do it the best, which go archers, full wall, archers, market up. Tatar, the sheep lasts forever. Like the sheep is lasting longer than Doubt's professional career. And the whole idea is you don't need to make a single farm, so you market, sell wood, sell stone, up to the castle age within like 4 minutes, and you go with thumb ring crossbows right off the bat. You also have camels or CA if needed. So you get a really nice all-in castle setup from Tatars. And then if you need to set up extra town centers, you absolutely can. And you get the extra 2 sheep per town center, which helps you boom after the aggression. Overall, it's a really good civ. I'm going to probably stick it near my crew here. In my opinion, though, I think they are slightly a bit worse than Saracen and Ethiopians at doing what they do. So I'm going to probably stick them a little bit further back. Probably something like maybe top of B tier, actually. I can see some people disagreeing with that, but it's just that if you want to do like the fast crossbows, I think Ethiopians and Saracens just do it better than Tatars. And like their game feels better after that because Tatars don't have arbalest. So like if you're doing Tatars versus Ethiopians, both do the same thing, then Ethiopians just get to like arbalest and Tatars get to skirms, and it's like a bit whack. So Tatars are the weaker version of this strat, but still a force to be reckoned with. And it's still a nice playstyle there. And you get some other options like CA, which these 2 civs don't do as well as Tatars. Saracens have okay CA, but Tatars are definitely the go-to CA. Next up, we've got Teutons. Teutons remind me a little bit of like Slavs, but they're a bit worse. They have a nice early game, but they're just scaling a little bit worse. They kind of come down here near like the bottom of B tier civs, maybe top of C tier. I'll probably put them right behind Celts. The reasoning is like the cheaper farms helps, but the problem with Teutons is they die to like a faster castle. Like imagine Ethiopians, faster castle, crossbow camel outside your door. You need like to buy time. You're gonna have to start going into like tower defense. The game gets messy. That's like the comfort zone of Teutons. But that's not a reliable way to play, and you're giving the full initiative to the stronger civs in most games. So if you like to sit back and play with Teutons, they have some strengths, they have some weaknesses, but against the stronger civs, you're going to be on the back foot like pretty much all game. Next, we have Turks. They once again remind me of this area here, where they have some strong things, like the light cav with +1 pierce armor, the free light cav, which is not bad, the fast to gold mining, which is okay for early game, and the janissary / fast imp potential. Out of all these 4 civs, Britons, Poles, Spanish, and Turks, I think Turks probably has an impact like this. It could come in on certain maps where you want like a fast stim style, or you want the light cap to really do work against crossbow. But it's not going to be all that impressive as like a reliable civ across different maps. Maybe one map out there that will do something with the Turks. Next, we have Vietnamese. This is a civilization that thrives with their range play. So range versus range, the Vietnamese tends to do quite well. I would say it doesn't get the most amount of savings early game. You're only saving 50 wood on double bid axe. You don't get horse collar very much. You could sneak it in with Vietnamese, get some savings, but your opponent is skipping it 9 times out of 10. You just can't afford horse collar in Empire Wars. It's not a thing. And so I would probably stick Vietnamese in the B tier category. Somewhere right here around Slavs feels nice. Maybe a bit better than Slavs, just because I think crossbows and skirms will have a bit more influence on the meta than like a farming cavalry civ like Slavs. Like again, emphasis on like the timing push, the market and up. Slavs just don't do well in that kind of meta. Last but not least, we have actually a really good civ, the Vikings, which have free wheelbarrow from the start of Feudal Age. Key downsides to the Vikings, though, no bloodlines. This is a really big loss, again, because you're trying to make use of like bloodline scouts in a lot of these maps in the mid game. But you can do a style very similar to Ethiopians and Saracens and Tatars, where you can get the really fast crossbow. The thing is, the Vikings don't do it as strong as these, but they have a better economy behind it. Also, Vikings have a weak late game, but in Empire War, it doesn't matter as much, and Vikings can play pretty well on pure water maps. All of those factors into consideration, I would probably slot Vikings in the bottom of A tier. Not as strong as those 4 civs that get like super strong in the early game, and Vikings are also a little bit weaker than some of these civilizations right here that want to get to the castle age with a really good economy, and they have a lot of strong options or strong openings. Vikings have generic openings, but a very good economy to carry them through that. That is going to be my tier list for Empire Wars of Redbull Wololo. You could make an argument for Portuguese stepping into S tier, but I strongly believe Huns and Mayans are the 2 civilizations that feel absolutely overpowered across many different maps. That is the important thing. Many maps, they are like the top picks. All of the civs in A tier will be competed over in draft. Depending on the map, some of these civs will be really good. Water maps, you tend towards Armenians. Open land maps, you tend towards probably the cavalry civs like these 4. And then on like medium maps where you can wall and play for timing, you like to go for either the meso civs or the crossbow civs. That's like the way to look at it. A lot of different play styles for Empire Wars are viable, but overall, army is king, and you want to play with as much army as possible, and economy doesn't pay off like it does in a random map. There's no like economy and pick up relics and chill. That happens 1 out of 10 games, 1 out of 20 games. It's most of the time army. Whoever wins fights will get some snowball. Whoever can snowball successfully can win. The other guy has to scramble to defend and maybe overwhelm in some other cases or outsmart and try to pull himself back. That is the way Empire Wars is usually played most of the time. Thank you so much for watching, guys. I hope this tier list is helpful. I've got a lot of requests on it, and I also put a lot of effort into it, so I'd appreciate it if you like the video, subscribe to the channel if you're new, and recommend it on Reddit or other Discords for other people to benefit from the tier list, because I really do put a lot of energy into this. I'm not just BSing the civs and using my high rank to prevent people from questioning it. I actually welcome questioning. If I missed anything, if you guys disagree with certain things, this is Empire Wars. I don't have nearly as much experience on Empire Wars, so definitely point out some things in the comments below if you think there's some discussion needed to be had. And if you disagree completely or agree with me completely, also let us know in the comments below just to see where we're at as a community. Thanks for watching. Enjoy the video and enjoy the rest of your day or whatever. You already watched the video. And peace. Check me out on Patreon if you want to support me more, by the way. Okay, peace for real.